Yo, what is going on? I'm back with another video this week. This week we're going to be doing like a vintage type of R&B sample again, showing you the ways I use all the effects and how I try to keep it as simple as possible. So yeah, before we get into that, I will be dropping a sample pack with this sample in soon. It's going to be a free sample pack with about 7 to 10 depending on what I choose. So yeah, if you haven't followed, please follow me on Instagram, that's on the screen, and let's get straight into this video. So the way I started off this sample is I wanted to use thick chords that was not too overpowering. So I used this studio grand piano, and it sounds like this. So yeah, with them chords, I added like just simple ninth minors, and then at the end of each 4 bars, I just added a little different, just something that just changed it up for the listener, so it sounds pretty cool. And the effects I used on this was, took out some lows as usual, boost around the 500 mark just to give it a little bit more air. Then I used this valve compressor again, I compressed quite a lot of it, and then just up the flutter just to give it that vintage sound. And then I just wanted to bring the wideness of the reverb and flatten it a little bit, so hardly any decay, and then just 20 on the mix. So the next thing I added was this Rickenbacker bass. I felt like I needed to add a bass next just so I can get that bounce from the end of the chords on the keys. So that sounds like this. So yeah, I messed with the velocity of that just to make it a natural feeling, and at the end of the 4 bars again, just that same bounce that I did on the piano. So the effects I used on this bass was, I made it a little bit more stereo, and then I used this JJP like compressor bass just to give it a little bit more presence, take out the sub that was too much, and just extract some lows, and just basically compress it a little bit. And then for this I added the detune slap bass, and then took out that low bit that was just rumbling too much, and then just give it a little bit more air to just make it a little bit more brighter. Then next I added this bell, but I turned it into an ARP by going to the settings here. I just took the attack up a little bit just because it was a little bit too harsh, and then changed the release a little bit. And then to make it an ARP, I used this up and down bounce, then just changed the timing to be a bit slower. Then I used the main chords from the first keys, and I just changed them a little bit, just moved them over a little bit just to give it a little different effect and texture to the sample. Then for that, I added a little bit of a reverb, took out a lows and a bit of highs, just give it this little bit of a chorus, and then I made it go from left to right with a pan man. So as this was like a vintage sort of sample, I wanted to give it some more instruments that just give it that vintage texture. So I added this flute. And then on that I used these effects, just the same. I wanted to flatten the reverb, not too much, make it more tighter, so low decay, low mix, not too much, and then took out some lows. So yeah, next I used these strings, and where would a vintage sample be without this Mellotron sort of strings, violins? So it sounds like this. So yeah, notice how I have the same keys as the flutes but in different areas. That's pretty much just to give the listener a different feel and for them to just bounce off each other and make a cool vibe. Then for that, I wanted to flatten it again with the reverb and then take out some lows. And then with the flute and the strings, panned them each side, made one a little bit more stereo than the other, made one a little bit more mono. So I wanted to give the introduction to the sample a cool intro, so I added these vocals that I found on Arcade that sound like this. So yeah, let's take a look at the effects. I think the original sample, I just changed it down 12 semitones, so 1 octave, and then I brought it back up a little bit with the little altar boy. Then added a little bit of reverb, quite a high decay, but I modulated it here, just took out that, just so it would make it a cool texture. And then love filter, I like to go to the low pass and then just mess with this X and Y. It gives it a little, just changes the frequencies a little bit, it gives it a cool feeling. And then take out that mud a little bit. And then I use quite a high feedback and mix on the delay because, as you can tell, it gives it quite a nice highlight sort of thing to the melody from the voice. So yeah, that was pretty much that. Then the second half of the sample, I copied the keys chords into this ethnic type of like bell sort of sound, maybe like a vintage keys, I think it was. It sounds like this. So that, you can tell, is quite wide compared to the keys, just so they fit each other in. And then I brought that up an octave. Then the effects for that, I panned it to the right a little bit, just so I could make a little bit more room for the other keys. Then took out some lows, compressed it again, quite high compression. Same with the flar, just lo-fi a little bit down, just to give it a little more edge. And then not too much decay because I felt like it was too wide enough as it is. And then that delay just to give it a cool feeling. So lastly, I use this lead that sort of like fit in with the flute and the violins. It sounds like this. And then the effects I used on that was this super VHS. Just turn this magic thing on. I'm not really sure what it does, but it just gives it a cool texture. And then took out some lows. And then as usual, I use a perk loop just to give it a little bit more rhythm in there. Sounds like this. And then with that, obviously took out lows and highs and just brought it down a lot in the levels. And then altogether, this is what the sample sounds like. And lastly, I just want to touch on a little thing about making samples. So obviously you want your main elements of the sample the highest volume, but not obviously too much, like keys. Vocals can be, it depends how you use vocals, it depends how much you want them present, it depends if it's the sole purpose of the sample. But just keep them down a little bit. Pan quite a lot of stuff, because when you pan stuff it gives more room for other elements. So yeah, just pan a lot of things. Focus on like making stuff stereo, mono, just gives it like another way to just not muddy, make the sample muddy, and just gives it cool textures. So yeah, that's how you just get all the sound selection to fit perfect. Once you get that right and you can mix it right, just level it fine, it sounds great. So yeah, if you like that sample and you want to see more, I will be dropping a sample pack soon, the free one, and my Instagram will be on the screen. So if you like this, subscribe, do all that stuff. Thank you guys. Peace.